Good afternoon. I'll call this General Services Public Works Committee meeting to order. Today is October 9th, 2023, and we are meeting in the library community room at noon. We have 3 items on our agenda today, and the first will be presented by our Superintendent, Kyle Marine of the Water Department, and this is requesting approval of a contract with Filtration Technology Incorporated for the purchase of a Myox chlorine generator in the amount of $101,075. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you for having me, Council. Yes, I'm here today to get approval to purchase and install a Myox on-site chlorine generator. So in 2009, we originally had gas chlorine units that were in our well sites. These were in about 150, 250 pound cylinders with gas chlorine that we injected into the water system to help clean any contaminants that may get by. As things move forward, chlorine gas is very dangerous. It can leak. It's very destructive. So we started switching over to on-site chlorine generation units. We've got a couple different brands that we utilize within the city of Coeur d'Alene, and we replace them about every 10 years, plus minus, depending on hours run. So it depends on the well house. Some well houses run more than others depending on the size and the water needed for the time of year. So we are looking to replace a Myox or a chlorine generator at Linden Well. What we do is we go out to bid, and there's only 2 units in the area that would respond to us to bid. We only ended up getting 1 back from Myox. Microchlor did not respond. What we do is when we replace the unit, we take the old unit out, we disassemble it, and we save it for parts. The older units are hard to repair because you can't get parts for them with technology changing all the time. So what we do is we strip those down, we put them in storage, we utilize those parts to rebuild other Myox or microchlors depending on what we're replacing. So this older unit, particular unit, will be pulled apart and saved and utilize the parts to work on the RC well to keep it running for a few more years before it needs to be replaced. With Filtration Technologies, we'll purchase the unit from them, get the unit in-house, and then they'll come up and help us install the unit at the well house and get it up and running for next season. I'm here before council to put on consent, if approved, for $101,075 from Filtration Technologies for a new Myox system. And I'll stand for any questions. And I apologize, I have some pictures. There is the Linden well, current well. That is the existing chlorine generation unit. It is a microchlor unit. That's the older style unit. And then I've got a picture of what a new unit looks like at a different well. Every layout's a little bit different because all our well houses are slightly modified. So, and with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Kyle. Any questions?
Madam Chair, probably more like comments. You know, we're really lucky here in the city of Coeur d'Alene and Kootenai County that we have great drinking water. I would probably say throughout the entire state. And so the reason we do is because we absolutely take care of the issues at hand. And so this seems pretty clear cut. Purchase we should make, and with that, I'm happy to make a motion. I would motion to recommend that council approve a contract with Filtration Technology Incorporated for the purchase of Myox chlorine generator in the amount of $101,075.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are moving quickly on to item number 2. And once again, we have Kyle with us, and this is a request for approval of a professional services agreement with FCS Group for the preparation of the 2023-2024 water rate study in the amount of $65,000.
Thanks for having me again. Yes, about every 5 years, we do a rate study within the water system to make sure that we're not overcharging or undercharging customers. The main goal of this is to make sure that we have adequate income to maintain the system into the future and also add any infrastructure or replacement infrastructure that may be needed in the next 5 to 10 to 20 to 25 years. So we look about 20 years out, but the plan is only for a 5-year plan because a lot of things can change in 5 years. So we've used FCS Group before. They've done a really good job and built a really good program for us. So we reached out and did a collection of different organizations that would put forth a proposal to the city of Coeur d'Alene. All those companies came back and engineering firms said, If we did come to you, we would use FCS because we're just going to hire them. And they've already built your program. So FCS was the only responsive firm that responded to our rate study. Like I said, the other firms, I've got documentation that they said we would just hire them and subcontract them out. So I don't have any pictures for you, I apologize. We would like to move forward with FCS for a rate study and have that put on the consent calendar. And I will stand for any questions.
Madam Chair? Thank you. Kyle, when we do a rate study, does that necessarily mean that there's going to be a rate hike? Like, for instance, what happened 5 years ago? It's before my time.
Sure. So 5 years ago, we did a rate study that looked over, and they looked at our existing comp plan. And like I said, they go over all the infrastructure needs of the system, what needs to get replaced, what needs to be added to the system to make sure that we can grow with the city. So 5 years ago, the rate study was broken up into incremental rates at, I believe, 2.5% each year to increase those rates to make sure that we can compensate for the power costs as those go up, replacement equipment, pipe replacement, materials, the MIOC system that we replace every 10 years. So that incorporates everything all into that umbrella to make sure that we're having adequate income to replace those items and keep the system running appropriately. So no, it doesn't mean that we'll necessarily have a rate increase, but as the economy grows and everything else that increased costs, we look for as many ways we can to save money. It also helps us build a platform that we can utilize for grants. So if we can find a grant, it can implement that into the program to show where rates should go or cap fees should go on those programs. So a new tank that we're working on, a transmission line at the end of Thomas Hill, it'll incorporate those into that. A lot of that's utilized from cap fees. So they'll look at the cost for cap fees, and then they'll look at the long-term replacement costs and maintenance of that tank to make sure that we have adequate income to keep it up and running and in safe order.
Well, that was a very thorough answer. I appreciate that.
You betcha.
Yeah, and I think that something we've got to do, obviously, we want to rely on user fees wherever they're appropriate, and it certainly is. Otherwise, other things end up, general property tax could subsidize, and we don't want that. And as we know, some of our areas we were lagging behind in tracking on and adjusting, so sounds like we're right where we should be. So I will make a motion to recommend that council approve a professional services agreement with FCS Group for the preparation of a 2023-24 water rate study in the amount of $65,000.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Cal.
And our third and final agenda item of the day is a request for the declaration of 2 police department vehicles as surplus and authorize the sale at auction. With us today is Captain Dave Hagar. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, and I was here before you a week ago to purchase some vehicles, and now we bring before you a request to surplus 2. The first is a 2004 Chevy Astro van that was originally used by our civilian investigative specialists, used to be called the report takers, and has been through several different assignments. And at nearly 20 years old, it has a myriad of issues. I've been in it, and sometimes the doors decide to work and not. It's had electrical issues, and it's really run its course. The second is a 2010 Ford Explorer with 106,000 miles on it. And again, with the way these vehicles are used, we go through water pumps more often and we add electrical components. This wasn't a police vehicle. This was an unmarked vehicle, but we still add things to it and it tends to impact it. But again, this is 13, almost a 14-year-old vehicle, and it just doesn't make the sense to put the money into it anymore. So with that, I would request your authorization to surplus these 2 vehicles.
Thank you. Any questions? Christy?
Thank you. Well, Captain Hager, I can't believe you're going to let go of the van.
I think you probably drove it at
I
some
did
point.
drive it, and the doors didn't work back then, and that was a long time ago. So, yeah, we just can't keep these kind of vehicles going much longer, and it, as you said, it costs more money to try to keep them on the road than to,
let them find their natural retirement. So,
And we need the space for the new ones.
And if I can give some kudos, Steve Moran is our fleet manager, and he does an amazing job of tracking down to the penny everything that happens with our vehicles, the cost and forecasting and our needs. And he's the one that provided this information, but he is the core of how we operate. He's our Radar O'Reilly, if you will. He knows things are going to happen before they do. So I want to give some kudos to him while I'm up here.
very good.
And I think, too, just for the public watching, that, so do these go to a Post Falls auction, or?
They do. They go to the
Yeah.
Post Falls auction, and it's set up depending on how much they make, what the percentage that goes to the auction house
Right.
versus what comes back to the city into the city general fund.
Well, especially that second vehicle, like you say, knowing they may need to be replaced, but they have been well-maintained for what they are, so somebody looking for a good deal, especially on that second one, that might be a pretty good rig, and go out there and bid it up, so.
The first one, if you just never lock the doors, you're good.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Do you want me to make I'll
if you
make the
can
motion?
find it quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
I make a motion to recommend that council approve the declaration of 2 police department vehicles at surplus and authorize the sale at auction.
Second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Well, that concludes our general services meeting for the day, and thank you to council members
Okay.
Wood and English.